Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started right now. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Tara G. Before I do that, I wanted to let you know that I am recording. And so that will be available later on the YouTube channel specific for the conference. At the end of the session, I will be putting up two different evaluations, one if you need CEUs, one if you don't. And you'll be entered into a raffle if you fill out either of those. So please make sure you're doing that. It helps our speakers in the future. So it is my honor to introduce Tara. Tara has worked for the City of Roseville since 1997 as a landscape architect and park planning and development superintendent. She's a regent emeritus at the CPRS's Maintenance Management School, having taught the first year curriculum, How to Develop a Maintenance Management Plan. In 2008, Tara developed and teaches a 3-year rotating topic on leadership. Tara has also been teaching about diversity and sensitivity for the last 15 years. Additionally, she has been trained and certified to train through Korn Ferry's Appreciating Differences, Stephen Covey's 4 Disciplines, and Six Sigma. Tara has served on a number of state professional boards, task force, and special committees, with her most recent positions on the State Board of Directors, Secretary Treasurer, and the Presidential Series, starting as Vice President and ascending to President-elect and President in 2020-2021. She also teaches at the annual CPRS conference, has taught at San Francisco State University, at the NRPA conference, in elementary classrooms and after-school programs. Thanks for being here, Tara, and I will let you get started.
Well, thank you. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing this afternoon? We're good and see the thumbs up. Well, great. I know right now it's just pouring rain here, so this is a good time to be inside and at least up here and watching or participating in this. So I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully everything works and we'll go from there. All right, can you see that? We'll go to slideshow. And here we are. So thank you again for being here. This is a topic that what I call an introductory topic. We've got the Jedi Master here as our room host, so I won't pretend to be talking too much about the higher level, but we've got to start somewhere. Diversity and inclusion is a starting place in my book. When we talk about Jedi, we're talking about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so to me, again, today we're going to be talking about diversity and inclusion. When we get done with this, or the objectives of today is to redefine how we see diversity, discuss perceptions and awareness, and if we can just leave just a little bit more sensitive and inclusive, a little bit more aware, then we've taken a step forward. So what is diversity? Certainly diversity has been something that is defined by the traditional sexual orientation, race, gender, culture, ethnicity, that type of thing. But diversity in today's world is much different than it used to be. If you look at this slide here, we've got a lot of different types of aspects of diversity, including perspectives. So let me ask you a couple questions here. The question is for you to think about. You don't have to raise your hand or answer the question, but just do it to yourself. And I know Heather's heard me ask these questions before. But the questions are, how many of you speak a different language within your household? And again, just answer to yourself, yes or no. How many of you live with more than 2 generations within your household? How many of you have a disabled family member? How many of you have are a California transplant, meaning you were born and raised somewhere else outside of California? And then the last question I have for you is, how many of you are diehard football fans? Now, why would I ask a question like a diehard football fan, because it doesn't even have to be football, baseball, basketball, whatever sport that you're most interested in. What you find out most of the time is, being a diehard fan, there's a story behind it. And that is something that is unique to each person, why you follow the Dallas Cowboys. And in my case, why we follow we still say Oakland Raiders. And so, I grew up 49er. So that tells you one thing, right? I grew up as a 49er fan. That's what my parents were. That's what, we watched every Sunday and Monday night and Thursday, if there's Thursday night football. And why then am I a Raider fan is because I married a diehard Raider fan. So I consider myself a Raider fan by marriage. And that tells a story about a snippet about who I am and a little bit about my background. So let's talk about snowflakes. And I'm not talking about snowflakes in the term of today. I'm talking about how we defined snowflakes when we were in kindergarten. We learned that every snowflake is made of the same chemical combination, the same DNA, in other words. But we also learned that there's not a single snowflake whose pattern is exactly the same. And so I liken that to every individual, every human being, that while we all have, 4 limbs, arms, hands, feet, all that kind of stuff, hopefully a head, that we're made up differently because of the experiences that we had, where we grew up, what kinds of interests were introduced to us, or maybe lack thereof. And so for each of us, when we talk about diversity, we are all diverse. We are all different. We are all essentially the same, but we're all different. So when we talk about diversity, according to Korn Ferry, there's things that we know. So what do I know? I know that if you approach a Japanese person and you shake their hand and you look at them straight in the eye, you will not, they will turn their face, in other words, because that's a sign of disrespect in the Japanese culture. I know that. We also are made up of things of what I know I don't know. So in the example of this, I know I don't know how to speak German. I don't. So those are 2 things. Now, as you can see, that takes about 1/3 of this pie. And here's where we start to get into the danger zone. Because what I think I know is a little bit of danger, because what does that do? It creates an assumption that could be wrong, could be right, but most of the times it's an assumption that is misled. But the biggest part is what I don't know, I don't know. And that's really dangerous, right? Because that's based on maybe naivety, maybe it's just not knowing, maybe it's ignorance, maybe it's a little bit of everything. So when you look at this chart, the majority of the chart, based on what we know about diversity and inclusion, is danger zone, from the yellow to the light blue. And so that's something, again, to think about as we become more aware and we educate ourselves. So here's a short video.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, finally, right?
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
San Diego. We speak English there.
Oh, no. Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I mean before that.
Before I was born.
Yeah, like, well, where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean, but I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hamshasina. There's a really good teriyaki barbecue place near my apartment. So I actually really like kimchi.
Cool. What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from?
Oh, I'm just American.
Really? You're Native American?
No, just regular American. Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from England.
Oh, well. Hello, Governor! What's all this then? Top of the morning to you. Let's get a small tea. Double, toil and trouble. Mind the gap! Beware, Jack the Ripper! Bloody hell! Pip pip! Cheerio! I think your people's fish and chips are amazing.
You're weird.
Really? I'm weird? Must be a Korean thing.
Well, so why did I play that? Well, where was this gentleman living in the pie chart, if you will? If we look at the pie chart again, I would say that he's living in the yellow. What I think I know. He thinks he knows, he's making all these assumptions. And so, you know, it's just the video is just a little fun way to poke fun at sometimes the assumptions that we make when we meet different people. So right now I mentioned, I do mention that we are in the midst of a cultural awakening. The events that have occurred or devoured and challenged our basic sense of civility and respect for one another has been going on for the majority of 2020. Yet the root cause of all of this didn't start in 2020. So if you think about many of the ethnic groups that have experienced transgressions over the years, in our own US history, we include the Native Americans, the Chinese, the Irish, the Jewish, African Americans, Japanese, and more. And so a lot of this is not new. So, you know, why is this happening right now? Well, lots of times people think it's about common sense. And my husband and I always have this conversation about common sense. He says there is and doesn't understand why more people don't have it. I say there's no such thing as common sense. And the reason why I say that, and I don't know that either one of us are right or wrong, but the reason why I say there is no such thing as common sense is because of what I said earlier in this session, that each of us are very different. Each of us have different experiences, different thought processes, different perceptions. And if we have common sense, then we wouldn't be talking about or debating about a certain issue or not, because we all come with that uniqueness within us, that specialness within us. And so to expect that I'm going to think just like my next door neighbor, or frankly, just like my husband or my sister or my either of my two brothers, we are so different. If you look at even your family, and there are some commonalities on what you think and some of the values you hold, but how you interpret it, how you see it, how you experience it is all very different. So are we the same or not? What happens when we treat everyone the same? And here's an example of that.
Hey, Waltz. What are you up to? We're having a barbecue. You want to come over?
What do you think?
There's tons of food.
Yeah, just keep your hands off my dog.
No worries. We only eat cats.
Really?
No, I'm kidding, you moron. Come on, you can be my special guest.
No, I'm fine, right here. Yeah. Son of a bitch.
Okay, so what have you had to eat today?
Oh, I had a piece of cake and a little beef jerky.
Come on over and get something to eat. We've got beer too.
Well, might as well drink with strangers. Drink alone, after all. It is my birthday.
Really? Happy birthday, Wally.
Don't call me Wally. Well, no paps, but plenty of beer.
How's he say? Running humble.
Hey, what am I doing wrong? Every time I look at somebody, they always look at the ground. What's she saying?
To her home.
No, no, she's not.
Yeah, no, she didn't.
No, she hates me. Come on.
She too.
Okay. Hey. Hey, what are all you fish heads looking at anyway?
I think we should go into the other room. Sorry. A lot of people in this house are very traditional. Number one, never touch a Hmong person on the head. Not even a child. Hmong people believe that the soul resides on the head. So, don't do that.
Well, sounds dumb, but fine.
Yeah, and a lot of Hmong people consider looking someone in the eye to be very rude. That's why they look away when you look at them.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, some Hmong people tend to smile or grin when they're yelled at. It's a cultural thing. It expresses embarrassment or insecurity. It's not that they're laughing at you or anything.
You people are nuts.
So we grew up with the mantra that we treat everybody the same. Did you have that same lesson when you were growing up? So what happens when we treat everybody the same? When we do, we lose the culture and the uniqueness of that individual. We lose the opportunity to learn more. We lose the opportunity to expand our perceptions and our viewpoints. So, you know, we lose the opportunity to celebrate how special each and every one of us are. So in the chat, and Heather, if you can help me read the input on that, describe a behavior of a successful person. What does that look like to you? So go ahead, if you have some thoughts, put that in the chat and Heather will read them out.
Being organized, motivated, happy, passionate, accomplishes what they set out to do, someone who is consistent and fair, has a job where they can support their family, confident and able to reach their goals, empathetic and compassionate, organized and consistent, comfortable with what they are doing and have done, team player and a go-getter, and kind.
Is that good? Slowing down. Oh, a couple more.
Yeah, Jonathan, that's hilarious. Breathing. Raquel is giving to others, someone that people look up to, self-sufficient. You guys are really good with creative words in here.
Yeah.
And they've kind of stopped rolling in.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Yeah, isn't that great? Now think about this. What is the behavior of a lazy or not so successful person? Go ahead and write that into the chat. Oh, Heather, you're muted.
Can't do anything without being told. Does not have goals or objectives to strive for, no drive, unhappy, unmotivated, gives no effort, unmotivated or uninspired, no pride, doesn't care, uninspired, no goals, inconsistent, unfair, doesn't try, Minimal, lazy, unwilling to participate. Blames others. Unaccountable, can't get out of bed in the morning. Always with excuses. Bad breath. Now you guys are just having fun.
That's great.
Plays the victim. Okay, last chance. Back over to you, Tara.
Thanks. Well, that's great. And so you think about the list that you made, both for the successful person and the not so successful person. And I will ask you that the question, as you're thinking about those words, is when have you been negatively perceived or categorized by an individual or a group of individuals because of a dimension within your diversity? Have you ever been bullied? Bullied to me is a form of discrimination because of usually when you're bullied or a person is bullied, it's because of something that is different than what the bully, if you will, perceives of it. So if you have been perceived or categorized, how does that make you feel? What does it do to your behavior? Do some of the words that you put into the chat with a lazy or not successful person resonate when you've been marginalized, when you've been put into an unfair category or unfairly perceived? It does affect behavior. It affects your desire to be more successful or to push forward. And so, when that happens, it affects your entire demeanor. Now think about these two words, white and black, and Heather, I'll need your help as well. We'll start with the word white. So in the chat, enter some phrases that have the word white in it. For example, white knight. So go for it.
White out, white hot, white as snow. Whitewash, white light, great white, white bread, white wedding, white Christmas, white house, white lie. Another white lie. White light, white privilege. Another white Christmas. You guys are all dreaming of not being in the Bay Area for Christmas. White lie again. Off-white.
All right, now think about that and do the same for the word black. Let's say black hat. So let's here's some phrases with the word black in it.
Blackout, black magic, blackness, black ball, black hole, blackout, black sheep, black as night, black coffee, Black Friday, black coffee, black on black, in the black, black cat, black widow.
Great. Now think about those words. Look at those words that are in the chat. For the most part, the phrases that have black in it are fairly negative. And the words that have white in it are fairly positive or brings some good feeling that goes along with it. And so when we talk about systemic racism, if you will, I mean, even our English language has nuances within it that we use every day, these phrases. And so sometimes it's just ingrained in us and we're not even thinking about it, or never really put any context into it. And so it's right there in front of us sometimes. And so it's not that we're going to change the English language, but being aware of what the connotations can be sometimes carries over to other things. So Korn Ferry talks about the awareness spectrum. And so I'm going to walk through that a little bit. When you're naive in the scheme of, in the context of diversity and inclusion, you're naive. Sometimes it's just that you don't know. And sometimes it's that you've just never been introduced to it or exposed to anything. If you're a perpetuator, you have people, those are those people that they know they're doing something that is discriminatory, but they don't care. They're going to perpetuate it anyways. There's, I think we all know people like that who are going to push buttons because they know they can. A lot of times we are avoiders. It's that fight or flight kind of mentality that happens. And especially when it comes to diversity and discrimination and inclusion, it's easier to avoid it than it is to say something. So I'm going to skip over diversity change agent for a moment and talk about fighter. Those are those people who are very passionate about what they believe in, and they fight so passionately that sometimes their message is lost in the fight. As an example, you know, when I graduated from college, I looked like I was 15 years old. And not only that, I entered into a field that was dominated by men. So here I am, short, if nobody noticed, I'm short. Asian woman who looks like she's 15 years old, out in the construction field. And so, you know, I was always being challenged. I was always talked over. I was always, you know, belittled about what it is I had to offer or had to say on it. Because after all, I was dealing with men who've been in the construction industry for more than 30 years, and they did not hesitate to tell me that. And so I started fighting to have a voice. I started to, you know, try to push harder and harder so that I could be heard. And at a certain point, I realized that I was fighting so hard that the message that I was trying to convey wasn't really being heard. And then it was at that point that I had to change how I approached things. Now, I will say that all of us at one point or another in time are a fighter, an avoider, hopefully not a perpetuator, but sometimes naive about it. So when we're talking about being a change agent, it is something that, you know, we all can be in our own way. And being a change agent is being sensitive and being more aware and being willing to, I won't say confront people, but being more willing to speak up and speak up in a nice way. If you were at the NRPA virtual conference, Glenn Harris was one of the opening speakers. And what he said was, be hard on systems and soft on people. And I think that resonates so well about challenge the system, but be sensitive, give people grace, be nice to people, and approach it as a way of educating, not as a way of blaming or pointing at people. If we can be more consistent as a change agent, then the other parts of this spectrum will get smaller and smaller. And it just takes one incident or one effort at a time. So here we go back to the pie that I shared at the beginning of this session. And I'll tell you a story about when I was Secretary Treasurer at the State Board. It was my first year serving on that. And one of the responsibilities of the Secretary Treasurer was to remind the rest of the board that they had reports to do and when the due dates were and keeping track of who did what. And so in my first meeting, that role was explained to me, and somebody chuckled and said, "Oh, so you're going to send Guido after us?" And so, everybody laughed, and I went back and I said, okay, I'm going to do this reminder probably 15 days before anything's due. And, we got a couple chuckles out of Guido, so I'm going to go find Guido. And the Disney movie Cars has a Guido in it. So I got a little picture of Guido and said, have you done your report yet? I sent it to the president to have him look at it. And I said, this is what I'm planning to send. What do you think? Do you like it? And he was very nicely said to me, he goes, I love the reminder. However, Guido could be interpreted as a derogatory. And I went, what? And so I went to a couple of my Italian peers and I said, what do you think? And their answer was, well, it doesn't bother me, but it could be. And I went like, holy cow, before I would even send it out, I am so thankful that I actually bounced this off of somebody and educated myself a little bit more. But then I thought about, does Disney know about this? How does Disney have a character named Guido and not, know that this is something that could be perceived as a derogatory? Well, I learned something new that day, and my green in this pie grew just a teeny bit bigger, But who was the change agent in this story? The change agent was the president. He didn't have to bash me over the head. He didn't have to yell at me. He didn't have to do anything. He just pointed out that it could be something that somebody could take offense on. And that was enough for me to go like, I need to do something different and change that. And so we can all be that. If you have somebody in a meeting that has accidentally or not really realized that they said something that was off-putting, you don't have to call them out at the meeting, but hopefully you have a relationship enough with that person that maybe after the meeting, maybe at a break, or an informal opportunity, you might point it out and say, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but what happened or what was said could be interpreted in a not so nice way or an unrespectful way. We always talked about tolerance. That's the thing about, discrimination is just show a little tolerance. I would challenge that word. I never liked that word when it came to looking at discrimination because tolerance is like barely tolerable, right? What I would challenge you is to appreciate the difference, appreciate and celebrate that special uniqueness of that individual. So the diversity is a mix. Inclusion is making the mix work. And so celebrating all the colors in this pile of M&Ms has always been something that is exciting and colorful and special. I love this logo, diversity and inclusion for the Hastings Public Schools. And I shared this with this, actually a form in this presentation in the orientation when I became president this March. And I really love the logo because of how playful it is and really celebrating it and really changing the dialogue from me, mine, and I to we, us, and ours. And in fact, if you have been following this year, at least on my presidential year, this is actually where Better Together came from. And if you look at it, Better Together logo is something that celebrates holding hands and coming together. And I didn't know this year that COVID and political strife and everything else that went along this year would happen. But Better Together is about all of this. We're better, we are stronger together. And this is something that really appreciate. Having the silver lining in all of this is to highlight the things that have been put in front of us this year. And never again will we be the same. And I hope it's never going to be the same, because now's the time to move forward and to come together. So this quote here is from Martin Luther King Jr. "We have flown the air like birds and swim the sea like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth like brothers." And from Nelson Mandela, "May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears." What's next for you? I would challenge you again to embrace diversity. That I hope that this little tiny bit inspires you to take the first step, to start with yourself, to look at how you respond, how you react, and how you include others, and to be mindful about what your personal choices might be. And remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So what's next for you? That concludes my presentation. I will stop sharing, and if there are questions or comments, we'll open it up. Oh, I guess I should open the chat, huh? I can see. All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you, Brandy, for that. Been very quiet, I know, but I love seeing your faces and your ears. Jonathan, love your ears.
I have a question, either for Hera or I combined your names, Heather or Tara or anyone else. Do you have any like podcasts that you recommend, or books or anything that would help us on our journey?
I'm going to leave it to Heather, because she has been with Dr. Brandon Taylor doing some book clubs. So go for it, Heather.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some great ones out there. If you haven't read How to Be an Anti-Racist, that's a great one to start with. It is not a how-to manual. For those of you that are worried, it's like this how-to manual. It's really his life story, but it gives you a lot of examples of things in our society, as Tara mentioned, kind of the systemic problems in our society that need to be dealt with. And so he brings up a lot of that. He also just came out with, and if I had it handy, I'll see if I can grab it quickly, a workbook, kind of workbook journal that you can do while reading it or after reading it, that give you a lot of prompts that really make you think about where you fit and things that have oftentimes for people come up in their minds, and the way that you can then reflect on those. The other one that we're looking forward to, and we just haven't pulled it together to do the book club on, is The Color of Law. And it's cool for Californians to read because it's based in California pretty much. It's a lot of the history talks about redlining and neighborhoods specifically in the Bay Area, but it's areas a lot of people would know. And it talks about how we got to a lot of the places we got to, where we have certain communities that aren't diverse, and why aren't they diverse, and how are we still dealing with kind of the after effects of that. And it goes all the way back in the Bay Area. It really starts World War II, for those people that are familiar with Richmond and the shipyards and the history behind that. Becky suggested a couple other ones, Fragile Mind, Blind Spot. There's a huge long list. Jonathan put up a list. I have another list that I can send out as well. I'll pull up the link to it as well. And Tara, maybe we can include some diversity resources. The other really cool thing that will be coming out is your magazine for this month focuses entirely on social justice. On the CPRS website, it's technically live, but we need to populate it. There is an entire justice and equity community And we will be posting, Brandon and I will be populating that, and we're looking for help, like what you guys, and I will save the comments on here. Looking for help on populating that, with resources, with questions, etc. But Brandy, I've got a huge long list. White fragility is another great one. My one comment on that one is it is written by a white female. So you have to decide if you're okay with starting with that. It does push you to think as well. And me and white supremacy, is that the right title, is also another good one. And there are a couple other rec specific ones as well. One is for equitable aquatics. And then there's another one that involves the name roller coasters, and I'm blanking on the rest of it, but it goes through the entire history of both Parks and Rec and amusement parks and all of that.
Yeah, and I'd also add too that NRPA has done a lot of recent work with regards to social equity and justice. And so they actually hired a director, I forgot what her title is, director of equity director.
Equity and education, or some combination of the two.
Yeah, I think it is education and equity or something like that. And anyways, she's wonderful. We got to meet her on a coffee talk, and you know, they've really pulled together a lot of great resources with regards to that as well. All right. So if there are no other questions, I really thank you all for being here. I know this was a really starting place, and there's lots of room to grow for all of us to embrace and to move forward. So just keep remembering, be that change agent, be that person that educates and learns, continue to strive to reach forward, strive to learn more, give people opportunities, and most of all, give them grace when they make mistakes. So thank you so much.
In the chat are the 2 evaluations, if you could fill those out, especially if you need CEUs. It's one of the things you have to do to get CEUs. And thank you so much, Tara, for providing that perspective. It was a great opportunity. There are 2 more justice and equity sessions. One is tomorrow and focuses on Kasumnes and the work that they're doing. And then the other one is Brandon and I are doing our getting started one on Friday at 2. So we hope to see you guys all there. Have a wonderful day.